Very happy and very proud to be able to be in contact with all of you, although it's a little bit technically difficult, of course, to have a more direct communication. We are aware that things might have been unclear last time, much due to difficulties in transmitting the sound. We do hope that by reading the manual and looking at the presses, you have a really good understanding and insight into what we wanted to do. So this will be the second session of the 7-week training, made by a lot of efforts by Hamza, which we are extremely grateful. I want to thank him right away. So what we wanted to do last time, and you all responded to this in different ways, to lift the two basic principles of our manual. We have a human rights approach combined with humanitarian principles of the SIR project, a value basis on our work. Dealing with severe human rights violations that have very severe health and life problems, I think that it is based on human rights principles. And the second aspect we underlined was the need to approach this field also with a mental health perspective. We asked some questions and hope that you had the opportunity to discuss it among yourself or even give it a thought. And a rights-based approach enrich our work in this field. What would a mental health perspective give us in addition to our work? All sent us some points as you expect and what you want us to discuss. This was transmitted to us by Hamza. I analyzed and looked closely at the points, and I think I can say that we will cover most of these during the 7-week session. So I do hope that you that the issues have been referred to in one way or another. And today we will deal with session 2, which call the Good Helper. So I invite you to open the pressing and move to page 1 and 2, 3, and of the pressing. So if you are there, I will just make some comments on mental health and psychosocial support. Before I do that, I will reiterate something I said last time, just emphasize what we think is a possible value of the manual, namely that it can be read as a textbook about what is trauma and traumatic reactions. That is, the chapters on the manual on trauma is a way of describing what trauma and what are reactions in alternative textbook form. The manual can also be used as something that gives you inspiration in your daily work with survivors. But we also hope, as a major point, that the manual can be used as a training manual. That's time, 2 months' time. One, provide training to your collaborators, to people in the field, or less experienced people in the field. You can actually use a text to itself. So exercises, instructions, and explanations are all in the manual. I wanted just to clarify this because we know we sometimes use the term helper, sometimes use the word trainer, but this is to explain the reason why. We come back to press number 4. We underline again the close relationship between mental health and psychosocial support in the context of gender-based violence. And you see here, see it psychosocial support as an effort to strengthen a society and enables ability to meet the psychological and physiological stress of potentially traumatic events. This means that we think that it's important to be aware of ways of dealing with traumatic stress in those who are exposed. Experience of gender-based violence can be a very distressing event for a survivor. Survivors should have access to supportive listeners in families and communities. Additional gender-based violence-focused services should be available. The aim is to enable the individual and the society to return to normal after abnormal events. First line of services directed at survivors will often be through community-based organizations, for instance, different NGOs, etc. Trained GV support workers provide case management and resilience-based mental health care. Services may require more specialized mental health care from an expert experienced in addressing GV-related mental health issues. Also, a question from some of you last time: how does one deal with referrals? But right now, I think we will concentrate on the direct assistance that we give. Before to talk about the helper, I want to underline something which I think may be the case we are working, and it's certainly a case many different places, namely that women or men will readily come forward and say that they have been exposed to sexual violence. It may be something that they prefer not to talk about. They might want help for their reactions without saying what has actually happened. That all of you have experiences, both in relation to receiving people who are talking about it, and you have experience with people who not over their dead body would speak about the violation itself, but meant to speak about their problems, to sleep, to breathe, to relate, to eat, etc. Try to look into this time is of approaching a person without in any way asking him or her to talk. That's use again the principles which are well tuned, principles of human rights and principle of trauma-based namely that you meet a person with very great respect, you listen, do not at all push the person to speak, allow the person herself be in control. We come back to all these principles today. So, if you number 5, you again a reference to the Interagency Standing Committee guidelines on mental health and psychosocial support. Another example of a document that referred to and a reference in the manual that can be of interest. So current training, this training can be part of a first step in a GBV-focused services provided by volunteers in a community who provide psychosocial care to gender-based violence survivors, even though they not at any point tell that that is their trauma. It's often something that one knows. That is why we think that help should be violence informed, but not necessarily gender-based violence focused in the conversation. I want to stress this difference because I think it applies to many places in the world. Are we okay?
هل عندكم أي استفسار؟ كيف ممكن تشاركوا؟
So I will now move to talking about the good helper. This we use, and we try to explain and to engage, first of all, you a conversation about what is the qualities for good helper in your community. We know that we as helpers, that means those of us sitting here, it is Hamza where he is, and all of you sitting where you are all you helpers engaged in work with people who have been exposed to severe human rights violations. Working in contexts that are very limited in the sense that we do not have a lot of care providers, we do not have necessarily any safe places to take people to. We may be working in situations of limitations and problems. But the most important tool that you will have in this work is yourself. You will be the person who can provide to the person in terms of respect, support, your way of helping him or her to understand that they are not crazy, they've not lost their mind, but are suffering from severe human rights violations, something very, very valuable. We tune own tool, how our approaches as helpers is tantamount in this context. So, to talk with you, but I think that comments that you will be making will be on chat. But I'd like to start asking all of you to write down, first on your own piece of paper, 2-3 points that you think qualify in your community. What are that you find as important in community, in working context of a good helper? What do he and he have to know and be aware of? So, a couple of minutes for all of you to reflect and down. And when you've done that, it would, if you could write it on the chat, and Kristin will tell me as the input comes in, and we will also take note of what you're doing.
Can you repeat your question, please, again? Please, Mira.
Kristin will now take note of some of the qualities that the group will find for what are qualities of a good helper. What a good helper in Syria, Egypt, or where you are sitting, Turkey. You live as mayor qualities of the helper in what these problems that we are talking about. I'll check to Christine because I'm means. Yeah, you can write to all so everybody sees. And we can comment. Ska det vara? Mm. Yes. Yeah. And we have some I that many of you lift the importance of keeping calm, non-judgmental, extremely important because I spoke with someone who did not want to talk because she considered what had happened to her own fault. So not willing to present the story, at least. And also underlined to be a good listener, other person's differences, inner strengths and survival tools. And I see some of you also include Sanger as the survivor. And very interesting point. We will raise the question about the gender differences here. Sometimes it's maybe best for women to speak to women, but we'd like you to reflect on, is it always the best for men in your experience to talk to other men? Or will they sometimes feel easier to speak with women? I have experienced both. Communication skills, extremely important. And two, trusted by the survivor. Are very good qualities. I will. I want to invite Kristin to share with you the picture on next. And after we have done that, we will come back to some of your input. Yeah, here's some words to write down. Yeah. Some of here comes from Melissa also, the importance of knowledge on international human rights principles. I think these are very, very important. And also the local laws for gender-based violence. And I assume that this will be related to the different countries as to what is possible and what is not possible. For instance, kind of reporting may be very complicated some places, other places it may open up for protection. it seems to me that most of you have focused very strongly the importance about listening and listening calmly. But we all know it is easy in a situation that is stressful to be so engaged. We want so much to help. We're moving close to the person and perhaps even a bit agitated. Normally, that's not very wise and something that you're all writing about. So being an on point that I'm sure it's included in your list, being to respect the distance in the room also, not pushing yourself onto a person, give the person the possibility to define the distance between you. Is emptying too close? Should move behind? Is it okay like this? Let me know if this is fine with you. And as you also under here, to give the power and control to the person. And much a part of having good communication skills. We have just straight some of these points. We have made a little video that you will be seeing afterwards. And you will see that have underlined the quickness, the woman, very accepting that she can remain silent or talking. We'll show this in a take all these notes down and we will make them available to you in one document. This exercise that we are doing now, look into the qualities of a helper, is that we have done all the different places where we have done the training and used the manual. And it started because when the first time this was being worked with was in Congo, and over there are many helpers who are working and eating, many women who have been raped at conflict and who are applying for and seeking refuge in some of the centers organized by the community or by NGOs or others. In one of these trainings, if you now look to Pressy on page 8, see a helper, and you will see that she has been drawn in quite a particular and peculiar way. The points here are the results of the work that the helpers had when they got together. Because they ask themselves, like you have asked yourself and each other, what are the major qualities to be a helper in this work? And underline, a helper, you need to have big eyes and to notice details in body and mind. This, of course, we can translate into be very attentive and aware of the person that you have in front of you. Be aware of a person being afraid, wanting to withdraw. Use your eyes and your listening skills to understand as much as possible. All the co-helpers underlined that you need to have a small nose to protect you from bad smells. They oftentimes had to wander around in areas where things had happened and easily be smells. So that's one of the things that the helpers mentioned. Also, your drawing, it's a tiny little mouth. The helper shall not talk so much. The helper should not give lessons as I'm doing now. The helper shall talk when it is appropriate. And survivor talk. So you see the head of the helper, you can see the big ears, even huge ears they drew on the helper, to allow the helper to carefully listen and collect information. So a good listener, which some of you have also included in your list, you underline being an active listener, and this is a great value. It's a very good skill to have as a helper. And again, it's so easy to forget. It's easy to become eager and talkative and even a bit pushy. But here the Congo women said, no, you must have huge ears to listen carefully and collect information about what you hear and what you see. They also notified that you have a big heart to receive the story with empathy and respect. And thinking about the heart here is of course a metaphor for being able to communicate empathy, able to show respect and empathy to the person that we are sitting with. The person that is seeking our assistance feels that you do not want to understand, you are in some way with the communication, they will very easily fall out of the situation. The Congo helpers underlined better, so you could sit for a long time without having to go to the toilet. Of course, more humoristic one, but it underlines the principle of time, how important it is to be available over time, given that he or she wants to being quiet together. The co-helpers underlined strong legs to walk distances. They often had to walk, even in the woods, over the mountains, out in the field, to rescue people who had been severely damaged in the war, and particularly women who had been and who were just left in the woods. The helper must have the physical condition and feet to be able to walk, which is a metaphor for strength, of course, physical strength to be able to deal with this. Also, big feet that are solid in contact with the ground. That you're not up there in the skies. As a helper, you're able to be very much rooted on the ground, situated, listening and receiving. Underlined a big bag to put her pride and her prejudice. Helpers may have some prejudice, perhaps pride, I don't know. And to put all these bad thoughts in the bag and keep them in the bag was one of the suggestions by helpers. You can see there's a helmet or a crown. Some protect you physically and psychologically. As a helper, we easily become vulnerable because we are part of the situation, which in itself is critical and often very risky. But we listen to so many stories. We have so much pain. We need quickly a helmet, something to protect thoughts and our minds. It is not about being an armor or something that separates us from others. It's about protecting ourselves, which is, of all, something to do with colleagues. Protecting ourselves by talking with colleagues about what comes to our mind and when that work is being heavy and a lot of us. See, this interesting drawing became a kind of a metaphor all for the helper in Congo. We see that, for instance, colleagues in Jordan, colleagues in Cambodia, colleagues in Latin America have drawn this image in different ways, strong different aspects, but all of them very, very similar. And we will look again through your input and, if not create a drawing, at least make a list of those major qualities in a good helper. Ask, why do we spend time on this? And we can move to number 9. Why we want to discuss this issue. Yes? And at any moment, if you want me to stop or dwell with something, please let me know by chat, and Christine immediately informs me. The reason we focus on the helper is that we know that these are our major tools. It is helpers' tools that we can use in daily work, and we hope to enrich the repertoire of tools. We are talking about the toolbox during the summer because the toolbox contains many of these abilities and strategies that you will use as a helper. And through some of the exercises that we'll explain to you starting next time and the time after, the exercises, the breathing exercises, to mention some, will be tools for you to have. We also speak about ways of getting control over trauma reminders, that all different memory or different stimuli that may evoke traumas and very painful moments. We also deal with tools to train the woman with trauma reminders, and that will be an additional tool in your toolbox, just to prevent some of the stuff that we will be dealing with. In you will see that's about good helper and a question: what could be the difference between a man helper and a woman helper? And some of you mentioned same gender helper is the best. Could you take a couple minutes, all just to think about this in relation to gender? Can you afford to do that? Is it always culturally the best appropriate approach? Is it something that we must look to as we meet the individual? If we ask the person, okay, talking to me, you're a woman, you're a man, you're a woman, is that, or do you have any input or experiences as to how same gender or alternative or qualities in men and women could come as relevant here? Now, and if you have some input, you can chat it, and we will, last time, take note of it. Yes. Ja. ourselves, as you may hear. But we will, I'm sure you have been able to think about and even to write some input as to this issue about gender. Oftentimes we will not have actions. Of course, we may have as a principle that we will not choose a male helper to a raped woman unless she particularly wants to speak to a male. And so we can be surprised. So if you now give some reflection to we to move you on to the next you can pass by the page 10 now. Where you see tools to use in your work with survivor. And as he already, many of these comments have been made by you already about listening, respect, and acknowledging painful reactions. Is saying, I see, I know, I understand that you are in pain. Respect you for the person you are and will not push you. The next indicate that you see in made in quotation marks, because we cannot see through the person in any way, and we're not supposed to analyze or to interpret. That's one of the worst things that we do at this point. We can communicate that we see the pain, that we understand her suffering, and that you can deal with her in a very direct way, him or her. And creating a safe place for the survivor who is sitting with you. If you cannot control the circumstances in total, you try to create a little safe room where the two are, and it's safe in an interpersonal way. It is because you are there to assist her or try to assist her. You are to create some quality with her that she feels safe in. You to stabilize yourself and indirectly also her with the here and now approach. You are dealing with what is happening in the room. Yes. Now, this is a good question. We cannot understand her pain in the sense that we know how it is. What we should try to communicate is that we understand that she is in pain and that we understand that she may want some help from us. I choose to try to say that, oh, I know how it is for you, is creating distance. So the point you made there is a very good one. And helpers are eager to say, oh yes, I understand because I've spoken to so many others, or yes, I understand because I've been there myself. We can never fully grasp the word other. What we grasp is that they're struggling. That we understand that they're struggling with their pain. So thank you very much for focus. In parts of the conversations, it will be important to be very here and now, in the room with the person, pushing communication. And I'll show you a role play now in a moment. So, as I mentioned, focused with exercises that ground the person. This will be seen now does not include grounding exercises. The next ones that you see will. And energization with exercises and more psychoeducational approaches. These last three will be tools that we will be dealing with soon. I would now like to invite you to see a a video that we made. It's not a perfect video of how things absolutely should be. We made it ourselves here at the office, but we would like you to take notice of aspects of this. Is the therapist able to create some safety? Deal with the fact that the woman is not ready to speak? Deal with the fact that they're sitting together, closeness, distance, etc. How does she reflect that she understands that the woman is in pain and manage to create some safety and confidence, or possible a confidentiality? You can just have a look at this video, and the two actors here are Elizabeth and Kristin, and it's taken here in the office where we're sitting. So I will now to open that little video, and I will fine. Thank you.